Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chuck Wagner. Anything can happen if you let it. Life is sometimes difficult, but you can bet it. It doesn't have to be so. Changes can be made. You can move a mountain if you use a larger spade. Anything can happen, it's a marvel. You can be a butterfly or just stay larval. Stretch your mind beyond fantastic. Dreams are made of strong elastic. Take some sound advice and don't forget it. Anything can happen if you let it. Anything can happen if you let it. You won't know a challenge until you've met it. Broaden your horizons, open different doors. You may find a you there that you never knew was yours. Anything can happen, raise the curtain. Things that seemed impossible will soon seem certain. Though at first it may sound clownish, see the world more upside downish. Turn it on its head, then pirouette it. Anything can happen if you let it. If you reach for the stars, all you gather the stars, but we found a whole new spin. If you reach for the heavens, you get the stars thrown in. Anything can happen if you let it. Life is out there waiting, so go and get it. Grab it by the collar, seize it by the scruff. Once you started living life, you just can't get enough. Anything can happen, it's official. You can choose the super or the superficial. Sally forward the way you is steering. Obstacles start disappearing. Go and chase your dreams, you won't regret it. Anything can happen, anything can happen. Anything can happen if you let it. Thank you so much for coming. First, I want to remind you that there will be an intermission, and I encourage you to going out there, buy some candy. I hear that Snickers really satisfies, and it'll help the theater. And also, after the show, CDs. We'll talk about that later. But you can see, my name is Chuck Wagner, and I am a big Broadway star. Now, my Broadway dream began when I was just a child with eyes full of wonder. I had a typical American childhood. Here I am walking my bunny, like you do. And then when I was 6, one of my great dreams was to become a superhero, and with a little help from my mom, my dreams became unlimited. And certainly it worked, because I was able to fly out here to be with you. Then in 1968, when I was 10 years old, and America thought that Paisley was a reasonable fashion choice, 2 things happened that would change my life. First, I went to New York, and I was introduced to Broadway with the original cast of 1776. I fell in love with Broadway, I fell in love with American history, and I was hooked. But then that summer, my family took us on vacation to California, and I was introduced to Disneyland. And there, at the Carousel of Progress, I learned this song that would become my life's philosophy. There's a great big beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. There's a great big beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a dream away. Man has a dream, and that's a start. He follows his dream with mind and heart, and when it becomes a reality, Thanks. Now, I was successful in school, but my professional career truly started after I graduated at a place called the Lost Colony on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And it tells the story of the first English settlers in the New World. Not the Pilgrims, but the ones that were lost. And there, I met a beautiful dancer by the name of Susan. She played the wife of the good Indian. I was the heroic colonist. And we fell in love. It was a perfect summer. And it was directed by the Broadway director, Joe Layton, very famous guy. And he said, I was serious about the business. There's two places to go. New York, obviously, the center of the known universe, or Los Angeles. And because LA has a beach, I transferred to USC in LA. And the first day I signed in to school at the drama department, I overheard in the office somebody said that they needed somebody tall who could sing. And I said, excuse me, I am. I can. And so we marched off to the music hall with this young student, fellow student, who had managed to get them to produce his very first show ever. And I got cast as the lead in the musical called Christopher. This composer's name was Frank Wildhorn. And if you don't know who he is, that's okay. I'll tell you a little bit more about him later. But we were fellow students, and he went on to great success, and some of that was with me. I'll tell you a little bit more about him later. Then I graduated from USC, and that led to my very first television job on ABC's General Hospital. I played the old Mr. Quartermain's executive secretary at ELQ, and that was easily 3 Mr. Quartermains ago. I was with the original David Lewis, and that's Anna Lee, fantastic people to work with. And that led to my very first job ever on a cruise ship. We did a musical review called Love in the Afternoon, and I was able to bring Susan with me, and it was very, very romantic. In fact, it was so romantic that I called ship to shore to get permission. And Susan and I got married at sea 36 years ago. And if you look really closely, you'll see that my best man was David Hasselhoff. Now, he was on Young and the Restless. I think he's hitting on my wife, even in this era. But he was on Young and the Restless at the time, and he would go on to become the Knight Rider. And it was not long after that that I got to live out my superhero fantasies when they cast me as ABC's Automan, a computer-generated superhero. Here I am with Des Arenas Jr., who is still my good friend. We're in the auto car. We would have called it the automobile, but that was taken. And thanks to Automan, I'm one of the first actors in the world to be able to say, hey, I'm an action figure. Now, before I got to Broadway, one of the things I did was a lot of regional theater. One of my favorite regional theater roles is one of my favorite shows of all time, Oklahoma. And I played Curly McClain. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it looks like it's climbing clear up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. All the cattle are standing like statues. All the cattle are standing like statues. They don't turn their heads as they see me ride by. A little brown maverick is a winking her eye. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. show I've done regionally many, many times in my youth, also some in my middle age as well. But before I do that, I'd like to bring out my very special guest star for the evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've been doing So This Is Christmas all around the state, and we have a whole nother week of that, so I hope you can come and see us. Please welcome Miss Laura Berger. Now, Laura has graciously agreed to channel some of my favorite female characters in some of the shows that I've been in, and we're going to open with a song from Annie Get Your Gun. And in this scene, she will be playing Annie Oakley to my Frank Buckner. I love you, Annie.
I love you back.
You sure look pretty.
Keep talking.
You're gonna marry me, Annie.
You can stop right there.
We'll have an old-fashioned wedding, blessed in the good old-fashioned way. I'll vow to love you forever. You'll vow to love and honor and obey. Somewhere in some little chapel, someday when orange blossoms bloom, we'll have an old-fashioned wedding, a simple wedding for an old-fashioned bride and groom.
I want a wedding in a big church with bridesmaids and flower girls, a lot of ushers in tailcoats, reporters and photographers, a ceremony with a bishop who will tie the knot and say, do you agree to love and honor, yes, but not obey? I want a wedding ring surrounded by diamonds and platinum, a big reception at the Waldorf with champagne and caviar. I want a wedding like the Vanderbilt had, everything big, not small. If I can't have that kind of a wedding, I don't want to get married at all.
We'll have an old-fashioned wedding,
A lot of tens and tailcoats with reporters, photographers, a ceremony with a bishop who will tie the knot and say, do you want to love and honor, not obey? I want a wedding surrounded by diamonds and platinum, a big reception at the Waldorf with champagne and caviar.
we'll have an old-fashioned wedding,
Not small,
a
if
simple
it's not
wedding for an old-fashioned bride. We'll have an old-fashioned wedding. Now, not long after those shows, I made my Broadway debut in a revival of the 1927 Rudolph Trumbull classic, The Three Musketeers. Now, I played Athos, the senior musketeer, and Porthos was played by Ron Taylor, who was the original voice of the plant in Little Shop of Horrors. And Aramis was played by Brent Spiner, who would go on to be Data in Star Trek The Next Generation. And that led me to my biggest Broadway show that we're going to spend a little bit of time on right now, when I was cast in the original cast of Stephen Sondheim's enchanted fairy tale musical, Into the Woods. Now, we opened the show in San Diego, and my wife was very, very pregnant. And by the time we opened the show in New York, my son Stuart was born, and for a year, he was a true Broadway baby. And for that year in New York, here's the original cast with Bernadette Peters. And then after a year, I was promoted to the role of Cinderella's prince. So here I am on the stage of the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles with Cinderella's family. And now here's a little peek at my own prince and princess backstage. It was a fun, fun tour. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, there are two princes in that show. One is the royal prince, heir to the throne. The other is his younger brother, and they both met these extraordinary women in the course of this evening, in the first night of the royal ball. And that night, the two meet in the woods and sing what is my favorite song from the show, called Agony. And since I had played both princes, I'd like to sing both for you now. Did I abuse her or show her disdain? Why does she run from me? If I should lose her, how shall I regain the heart she has won from me? Agony beyond power of speech, when the one thing you want is the only thing out of your reach. High in her tower, she sits by the hour, maintaining her hair, blithe and becoming, and frequently having a light-hearted air. Agony, far more painful than yours, when you know she would go with you if there only were doors. Agony, oh, the torture they teach. What's as intriguing or half so fatiguing as what's out of reach? Am I not sensitive, clever, well-mannered, considerate, passionate, charming, as kind as I'm handsome, and heir to a throne? You are everything maidens could wish for. Then why do I know the girl must be mad? You know nothing of madness till you're climbing her hair, and you see her up there as you're nearing her, all the while hearing her. Misery, although it's different for each. Always 10 steps behind, always 10 feet below, and she's just out of reach. Agony that can cut like a knife. I must have her to wife. Thank you very much. And now please welcome back Laura as Cinderella.
He's a prince who prepares, knowing this time I'd run from him. He's red-picked on the stairs, I was caught unawares, and I thought, well, he cares. This is more than just malice. Better stop and take stock while you're standing here stuck on the steps of the palace. You think, what do you want? You think, make a decision. Why not stay and be caught? You think, well, it's a lot. What would be his response? But then what if he knew who and see what he'll do. Now it's he and not you who is stuck with a shoe in a stew, in the goo. And you've learned something too, something you never knew. On the steps of the palace.
Wow, very nice. Now down here, we're going to do something else. Part of my promotion as well for the national tour, I got to play Red Riding Hood's wolf. Now my wolf is a little different than Johnny Depp was in the movie. And Laura has graciously agreed to be my Red Riding Hood. Now, how many people saw the movie Into the Woods? Anybody? Well, I get a kick out of the fact that for Hollywood, it took Captain Kirk and Captain Jack Sparrow to do what I did on the road. Look at that flesh, pink and plump. Hello, little girl. Tender and fresh, not one lump. Hello, little girl. This one's especially lush, delicious. Hello, little girl, what's your rush? You're missing all the flowers. The sun won't set for hours. Take your time.
Mother said straight ahead, not to delay or be misled.
But slow, little girl, hark and hush. The birds are singing sweetly. You'll miss the birds completely. You're traveling so fleetly. Grandmother first, then Miss Plump. What a delectable couple. Utter perfection, one brittle, one supple, one
Mother said, come one day, never to stray from all the paths.
so girl, many paths, so many worth exploring. Just one would be so boring. And look what you're ignoring. Think of those crisp, aging bones, then something fresh from the pan. Think of that scrumptious carnality twice in one day. There's no possible way to describe what you feel when you're talking to your meal.
Mother said not to stray, still I suppose a small delay. Granny might like a fresh bouquet. Goodbye, Mr. Wolf.
Goodbye, little girl. And hello. Thanks so much. Now I can tell that a lot of you are familiar with Into the Woods, but many of you may not be. So let me explain a little bit about the show. The plot of the show is about a baker and his wife who have been struck with childlessness because of a curse that's been placed on them by the witch next door. And Act 1, the witch explains to them that they need to bring her to break the spell. The cow as white as milk, the cape as red as blood, the hair as yellow as corn, the slipper as pure as gold, which they do. And by the end of Act 1, she gets the ingredients, they feed them to the cow, they get the potion, she drinks it, the curse is lifted, and they're blessed with a beautiful child. And you think that'd be a happy ending, but it is a Stephen Sondheim show. And so, as soon as they're blessed with the child, the baker's wife is killed by a vengeful, rampaging giant. And the baker is overwhelmed. He doesn't know what to do. He hands his baby to Cinderella, and he runs deep into the woods, straight into the mysterious old man who turns out to be his father, who had abandoned him when he was a child. Now this old man, he recognizes this look of panic in the face of responsibility. And he turns to his son and he says, "What are you doing? Running away? No more questions, please. No more tests. Comes They disappoint in turn, I fear forgive, though they won't. No more riddles, no more jests, no more curses you can't undo. Left by fathers you never knew. No more quests, no more feelings. Time to shut the door. Just no more. Running away, let's do it. Free from the ties that bind. No more despair or burdens to bear up there in the yonder. Running away, go to it. Where do you have in mind? Have to take care unless there's a where. You'll only be wandering blind. Just more questions, different kind. Where are we to go? Where are we ever to go? Running away, we'll do it. Why sit around resigned? The trouble is, son, the farther you run, the more you feel undefined. For what you have left undone, and more what you've left behind. We disappoint, we disappear, we die, but we don't. We disappoint in turn, I fear forget, though we won't. Like father, like son. No more giants waging war. Can't we just pursue our lives with our children and our wives till the happier day arrives? How do you ignore all the witches, all the curses, all the wolves, all the lies, the false hopes, the goodbyes, the reverses? Although wondering what even worse is still in store. All the children, all the giants, no more. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to do what's known in the theater as breaking the fourth wall. Really 5 if you count this side scrim-leg thing. And the reason I'm going to do that, 2 reasons. One, because A, I'm big, and it's a chance for me to get off the stage. But B, to me, theater is like church. So I like to get down and become one with the congregation. Now, what I need, are you guys married? Good, you sure? You're not just shacking up? Okay, good. How long have you been married?
30 years.
30 years, congratulations. Very nice. Now, this I'm going to do a role that I've been played many times in my life from the time that I was a young strapping fellow. And I'm often cast as the practically perfect knight Lancelot in Camelot. Now, every time I play this role, it's a chance for me to teach my son Stuart some of the finer points of chivalry. But what made this one production so amazing is that I was the first person ever to be knighted as Sir Lancelot by Broadway's original Lancelot, Robert Goulet. I know. And so, for the last quarter century, usually in concert, I'll sing this next song to my wife. But since she's not here, if you don't mind, I'd like to sing it to you. And I apologize to you in advance. If ever I would leave you, it wouldn't be in the summer. Seeing you in summer, I never would go. Your hair streaked with sunlight, your lips red as flame, your face with a luster that puts gold to shame. But if I never leave you, it wouldn't be in autumn. Seeing you in autumn, I never would go. I've seen how you sparkle when fall nips the air. I know you in autumn, and I must be there. Through the snow, on a wintry evening when you catch the fire's glow. If ever I were you, it wouldn't be in springtime, knowing how in spring I'm bewitched by your song. Oh no, not in springtime, summer, winter, or fall. No, never would I leave you at all. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Bob. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Laura Berger as the Lady Guinevere.
Saint Genevieve, Saint Genevieve, it's Guinevere, remember me. Saint Genevieve, Saint Genevieve, I know that here beneath this tree, you know how faithful and devout I am. You must admit I've always been a lamb. But Genevieve, Saint Genevieve, I won't obey you anymore. You've gone a bit too far. I won't be bidden bargain for like beads at a bazaar. Saint Genevieve, I've run away, eluded them and fled, and from now on I intend to pray to someone else instead. Oh, Genevieve, dear Genevieve, where were you when my youth was sold? Dear Genevieve, sweet Genevieve,
Okay, now, we're going to take a little bit of an intermission. Now, the second act gets really dark and really sexy, so I suggest you drink heavily. And please support the concession stands. And we will see you back in a few minutes. Enjoy the intermission. Thank you. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had fun and you're feeling full of Snickers and out of everything else that you needed to get rid of. Welcome to Act 2 of Living the Dream. Now, after that production of Camelot, I was able to reunite with my old college friend Frank Wildhorn in Houston, Texas for the world premiere of Jekyll and Hyde. And I created the dual title roles. We thought it'd go right to Broadway. And it didn't go right to Broadway, but years later it did go, and finally, when it went on the national tour, I was re-invited to the grand experiment for the national tour. But I'll always be grateful that I was the first person in the world to sing this now classic song. This is the moment, this is the day, when I send all my doubts and demons on their way. Every endeavor I have made ever is coming into play, is here and now today. This is the moment, this is the time, when the momentum and the moment are in rhyme. Give me this moment, this precious chance. I'll gather up my past and make some sense at last. This is a moment when all I've done, all of the dreaming, the scheming and screaming become one. This is the day, see it sparkle and shine, when all I live for never becomes mine. For all these years I faced the world alone, and now the time has come to prove to them I made it on my own. This is the moment, my final test. Destiny beckoned, I never reckoned the second best. I won't drown, I must not fall. This is the moment, the sweetest moment of them all. This is the moment, damn all the odds. This day will never end forever with the gods. When I look back, I will always recall, moment for moment, this was the moment, the greatest moment of them all. Thank you so much. And now please welcome back Laura. Laura, please come out here. Now, Laura has agreed to play for me Lucy, the professional young lady from the show. And in this scene, in a dark alley in London, they explore the dark side.
I feel your fingers cold on my shoulder, your tempting touch as it tingles my spine, watching your eyes as they
And now, late in Act 2 of that show, Hyde has been on a murderous rampage. Jekyll's a little upset about it. And he decides that he thinks he might have found a solution. And so, there before the portrait of his father, he thinks he's got it under control. Hyde begs to differ. Lost in the darkness, silence surrounds you. Once there was morning, now endless night. I will find the answer. I'll never disappear. I promise you this till the day that I. Do you really think that I will ever let you go? Did you think I'd ever set you free? If you do, I'm sad to say, simply isn't so. You will never get away from me. All that you are is a face in the mirror. I close my eyes and you disappear. I'm what you face when you face in the mirror. Long as you live, I will still be here. All that you are is the end of a nightmare. All that you are is a dying scream. After tonight, I shall end this demon dream. This is not a dream, my friend, and it will never end. This one is the nightmare that goes on. Hyde is here to stay, no matter what you may pretend. And I'll flourish long after you're gone. Soon you will die and my silence will hide you. You cannot choose but to lose control. You can't control me, I live deep inside you. Each day you feel me devour your soul. I don't need you to survive like you need me. I'll become whole as you dance with them. And I'll rejoice as you breathe your final breath. I'll live inside you forever. No, with Satan himself by my side. Oh, and I'll show the world that tonight and forever an angel remembers the name and the ride. Can't you see it? Over now, it's time to die. No, not I, only you. If I die, you die too. You die in me, I'll be you. Damn you, Hyde, set me free. Can't you see you are me? No, deep inside I am you. You are Hyde. No, never. Yes, forever. Damn you, Hyde, take all your evil deeds and rot in hell. Never!
And now for something completely different. When Chuck asked me to join him this evening, I, of course, was thrilled out of my mind. And I wanted to bring something to you that was very near and dear to my heart. So the song that I am going to present now is one of the first songs that I ever performed for an audience. It has sort of been commandeered by the season, so it's going to be seasonally appropriate, which I hope you all enjoy, of course. And it happens to be written by a very, very famous duet of composers that I'm sure you will recognize. So it is my pleasure to sing for all of you. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, like copper kettles and warm woven mittens,
well done. Thank you, Laura. Of course, you know that songwriting duet is called, they were Rodgers and Hammerstein. Now, another great, one of my favorite Rodgers and Hammerstein shows is South Pacific. And in this song, Emile de Beck offers us some sage romantic advice. Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger, you may see a stranger across a crowded room, and somehow you know even then, that somewhere you'll see her again and again. Some enchanted evening, someone may be laughing, you may hear her laughing across a crowded room, and then night after night, as strange as it seems, the sound of her laughter will sing in your dreams. Who can explain it? Who can tell you why? Fools give you reasons, wise men never try. Some enchanted evening, when you find your true love, when you hear her call you across a crowded room, then fly to her side and make her your own. For all through your lives you may dream once you have found her, never let her go. Once you have found her, never let her Now that brings us to the world's most popular musical. I've been blessed in my later years to often play in regional theaters the role of Jean Valjean, the protagonist. But it was Javert that brought me home to Broadway. There, out in the darkness, a fugitive running, fallen from God, fallen from grace. God be my witness, I never shall yield till we come face to face, till we come face to face. He knows his way in the dark, mine is the way of the Lord, and those who follow the path of the righteous shall have their reward. And if they fall as loose in a power, the flame or the sword, stars in your multitudes, scarce to be counted, filling the darkness with order and light. You are the sentinels, silent and sure, keeping watch in the night, keeping watch in the night. You know your place in the sky, you hold your course and your aim. and each in your season returns and returns, and is always the same. And if you fall as Lucifer, you fall in flame. And so it must be, also is written on the doorways of paradise, that those who falter and those who fall must pay a price. Lord, let me find him, that I may see him safe behind bars. I will never rest till then. This I swear by the stars.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by, when hope was high and life worth living. I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be forgiving. Then I was young and unafraid, and dreams were made and used and wasted.
Wow, that is how that is done. Well done, Laura. Now, not long after that production of Les Mis, I was able to take my children to Madison Square Garden to see the greatest show on earth. And we were able to ride an elephant. And some of that magic must have rubbed off, because several years later, I got to be the ringmaster of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. I even got to ride an elephant from the Midtown Tunnel down 34th Street, past the Empire State Building, all the way to Madison Square Garden. Now, you may or may not know, the circus is no more. It's now a piece of history. But in the spirit of keeping that alive, I'd like to sing for you Phineas Taylor Barnum's song from the Cy Coleman Broadway classic. The colors of my life are bountiful and bold. The purple glow of indigo, the gleam of green and gold, the splendor of a sunrise, the dazzle of a flame, the glory of a rainbow. I'd put them all to shame. No quiet rounds or graves, I'll take my days instead and fill them till they overflow with the rose and cherry red. And should this sunlit world grow dark one day, the colors of my life will leave a shining light to show the way. Thanks, are you having fun? That brings me to my favorite role of all time. Now, I was lucky I got to play this role from the time my daughter Paige was this high to this high. And now she is this high. She's got a master's degree, and she and her boyfriend have moved to Maine. But we're very, very proud of her. But before I'm ever allowed to do anything from this show, first, I have to do this for her. So ladies and gentlemen, for my daughter Paige, the Beast, in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Thank you. Now, for those of you who know the show, Belle has burst into the West Wing and is about to touch that enchanted rose. And I told her not to do that. There's a bit of domestic violence. And Belle escapes, and that's where we find the Beast, alone dejected at the end of Act 1. And in my twisted face, there's not the slightest trace of anything that even hints at kindness. And from my tortured shape, no comfort, no escape. I see, but deep within is utter blindness, hopeless as my dream dies, as the time flies. Love, a lost illusion, helpless, unforgiven, cold and driven to this sad conclusion. No beauty if I can't love her? No passion could reach me, no lesson could teach me. Oh, I could have loved her, and they could love me too. If I can't love her, then long ago I should have seen all the things I could have been. Careless and unthinking, I know no pain could be deeper, no life could be cheaper, no point anymore if I can't love. No spirit could win me, no hope I believe. Oh, I could have loved her, and that she set me free. But it's not to be if I can't love her. Let the world be done. Thank you very much. Well, we've come to the end of the show. Laura, please come back out. We have so many people to thank. First, how about that band? Thank you, boys. Pretty amazing. I want to thank Tag Management for letting me do this. They've given me the gift. I've been able to do this show all around the world on multiple cruise lines, and I've only just started. So thank you, Tad, for letting me do this. Thanks for letting me bring it here. And mostly, I want to thank this beautiful star, Laura Berger. She is amazing, the real deal. Well, again, thank you all for coming, and we'd like to leave you with one more of my favorite Broadway songs, and I'm sure you all know it, so please sing along, from Man of La Mancha, that elegantly sums up all our quests. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable fall, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong. Changed from heart, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right. Without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell on a highway cross. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest.